Hello, my name is Richard Lang, and in this video I am going to present some of the ideas in a book by Douglas Harding called The Hierarchy of Heaven and Earth, subtitled A New Diagram of Man in the Universe. It is not one of Douglas Harding's better-known books. Probably the best-known book is On Having No Head. That's a popular book, a great book. He wrote many books, but this was the first published book on the theme, What Am I? And he wrote it in the 1940s, and it took at least 10 years research and writing. Or if you go back to when he started in the early 30s, then it's 20 years. And the reason why I want to present some of these ideas is because it isn't very well known, and these ideas are wonderful. And the book, as I said, is subtitled A New Diagram of Man in the Universe, but it could have been subtitled A New Theory of Everything. It is a wonderful book, beautifully written, incredibly well researched, beautifully organized, and original. And it is a view of our place in the universe that takes into account modern science, relativity, all of that. So anyway, the way I'm going to organize this video is in chapters, I suppose, bite-sized pieces that you can watch at your leisure and watch one or two or three, but then come back later and pick up where you left off, because there's a lot in this, and it has taken me years to digest the book. And the first time I read it back in the mid-70s, I was blown away, and I'm still blown away by it. And I would like it to be better known. It is such a great contribution to science and to our view of our place in the universe. So I will start with a little bit of background in the next section. Douglas Harding was born in England in 1909 in Lowestoft in Suffolk, which is on the east side of the country. And he grew up in a fundamentalist Christian group, the Plymouth Brethren. And this meant a lot to him. He was deeply saturated in that view and loved his father very dearly, who was very committed to this. But when he was 21, he left, much to his father's disappointment, to say the least. And the reason why he left was that he said that he couldn't accept that they had the truth just because they said they did. And in fact, he wrote a 10-page essay on this subject and stood up and read it to the local meeting. And he was known as the worst case they'd ever had. But anyway, this was in about 1930. And he had moved to London from Suffolk, was studying as an architect, and although he had left the Brethren, he was a deeply spiritual man, and he began exploring the question, what am I? So he was really astonished that he was alive. He didn't take for granted the fact that he existed. And while he was alive, he decided really to have a look and see who was alive and not take either the Plymouth Brethren's word for what he was or anyone else's. So he really followed the evidence that science presented. Observe and look and see what the evidence is, and don't take for granted or don't theorize without evidence, you see. So anyway, the thing that first occurred to him was that he was made of layers. This is relativity. And he was a person, a human being at several feet, but closer to, he was a community of cells. Millions and millions of these primitive animals that can't see, and blind, deaf and mute animals. But he was astonished that when he opened his hand like this, they all rushed to obey his will, you see. And he was just couldn't understand how that worked, you see. And then, so that's what he was at a closer layer. And then, as an observer moved away from him, the observer would lose sight of Douglas Harding and see London and then society and eventually life and the planet. And he realized he didn't stop at his skin. And he extended into the tools around him. His first book was called The Meaning and Beauty of the Artificial. And this was about, in part, how you don't stop at your skin. You extend into the tools and machines around you. And once you've crossed this boundary between yourself and the world, well, where do you stop, you see? So then he got married and he moved to India to work as an architect in Calcutta with his wife, had a family there. And the war was approaching and he became even more intense, attempting to find out the truth about himself before he died. And in 1941, he finished a second book, An Unconventional Portrait of Yourself. And this is much more developed than the first book and presents the layers and presents a mystery at the center. Because as close as science can get, you almost disappear. Electrons or something, you see. But what are you at center? What are you nearer to you than an electron? And this was Douglas Harding's question. And he had a theory that it was a kind of nothing, like the mystics say it is, but he didn't want to accept a theory. He wanted to be able to verify it. And in 1943, he did just that. He stopped. And instead of stopped thinking, really, and just looked, and instead of trying to penetrate in from the outside, peeling away layer after layer of what he was to find out what he was at center, in other words, who he really was, because in that direction, it seems that science can never finally peel away the last layer. There's always something, you see. But what he did was he stopped and he just looked down at his body, and he could see his legs and he could see his arms and his torso, but not his head. And he realized in that moment that he wasn't looking out of a head, a thing. He was looking out of no thing, space, and he could see it. And in that openness was given the whole world. So if you're familiar with the Headless Way, you'll know about the experiments. Hopefully you've done some of the experiments that Douglas Harding developed in the late 60s and early 70s. And you might have read some of his books on this. So being aware you can't see your head, you're looking out a single eye. When you look at someone else, it's face there to no face here. Close your eyes, your space for sounds and thoughts and feelings and so on. So all that is available for you to explore. But what happened in 1943 when he noticed he was headless was that he realized that he wanted to put this in a book that made sense of it, because it just sounds mad, doesn't it? And how does it fit in with our view of the world and how we see the world and what we are? And that is where Douglas did a huge amount of work. And in fact, he made many, many notes on small cards, written notes with many, many diagrams. He thought through diagrams as much as through ideas. And I have these cards. There are 8,000 of them, two-sided. I've read them. And they are a fantastic document showing how he worked out his ideas. And we are going to make them available on an archive, freely available. So I'm saying this because this book, The Hierarchy of Heaven and Earth, took 20 years to write. It was an incredible achievement. I mean, it's beautifully written, beautifully organized. It is the finest example of creativity. It's literature. It is, C.S. Lewis called it a work of the highest genius. Now, this book is huge, huge. And when he finished it in about 1949, he understood that it was very unlikely it would get published. It's so big. And so he immediately, after finishing this huge book, started on the synopsis. And he completed the synopsis in 2 or 3 months. And then he sent it out to authors, including C.S. Lewis, who wrote back to him said, I have never been so drunk with a book of philosophy since I've read Bergson in World War I. This is a work of the highest genius. It is. It really is. And anyway, he wrote this synopsis, an abridged version, and that was what was published in 1952 by Faber and Faber. And I read this book, the big book, after reading the small book. I found out, I was a friend of Douglas, I was visiting him, and I suppose one day he showed me the big book. I read it, blown away. And so it is now available. You can buy it on Amazon. So this book just explores this new view based on your own experience, but fitting it in with common sense and all of that. So it is a fantastic book, and that's my little introduction to the background to it. Now we come to some of the ideas in the hierarchy of heaven and earth, or as I like to say, a new theory of everything. And I'm going to start with chapter 1. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole book, and I'm not going to go through chapter by chapter. What I'm going to do is start at the beginning and pick out some ideas, and then we'll see where we go. But the first chapter is an overview of the whole model, the whole diagram, the whole view of the universe and our place in it. At least a good start. And so instead of building it up brick by brick into an edifice, he gives you an overview of the whole edifice, the whole architectural design, if you like. And then the rest of the book goes into this and so on. So the book starts with Douglas raising the question, what am I? And in the preface, he talks about how important this question is for him, that he doesn't want to live and die without looking into who is living and dying, and it really is a matter of duty to himself to while he's alive, have a look. So there's that background of curiosity and wonder and interest. So anyway, it starts with the question, what am I? And he starts in his study writing on a piece of paper, see. And he says, well, what am I? Common sense tells me I'm a man sitting at a desk writing on a piece of paper. And then he says, he's got a sense of humor. He says, surely nothing can have gone wrong so far. But wait a minute. I look down at my body and I discover I have no head. Common sense is wrong. I'm nothing like other men or women. I have no head. Above my body is not a head, but is the universe, see. And actually C.S. Lewis described this as the most astonishing first paragraph he'd ever read. It is arresting, isn't it? Whatever you think of it. And if you've done the experiments, then it'll be clear to you what Douglas is talking about. You look down, you can't see your head. In the hierarchy, he says, well, I've got sensations, but they don't make up a head. These tickles and aches and pains, they're there. They're in the nearer region, so to speak, but they don't add up to a solid thing in which I'm living. And he says, well, I can see my nose. I've got one on one side, huge, and one on the other side. And in fact, he says that these are not noses, because when I look at a nose on someone's face, it's small, it's in the middle, it's attached to the rest of their face. But my nose, Douglas says my nose is unattached. I've got two of them, and they kind of swing from side to side. They're not attached to anything here. So here I am empty, empty, gone, yet full of the world. And this is just a remarkable observation, really. You see, he is not taking common sense's view or society's view of him as the only view. He respects the view of common sense, but he's looking for himself. And so that's where he starts. That's where he starts. And that first subsection in that first chapter is called The Missing Head. But the second section is called The Head Found, because when he looks out from this headless nothingness, he discovers his head out there, a few feet away, in mirrors, in the backs of spoons, distorted, see, and in photographs, and a camera can record his head out there. And when his friend walks in the room, then she sees his head and she can describe his head there, you see. Just as if you and I were in a room together. I can't see my appearance here, but you can. You have it. And you register my appearance there. And so Douglas, he often refers to Alice in Wonderland or Alice Through the Looking Glass. It's like that. It's a magical kind of world. There you are, a headless body with the world on your shoulders, headless body being observed from the middle distance by countless of your heads, small and big and some distorted and all of that. And so there's a region around you where your head appears. And then Douglas describes his friend approaching his center. So he calls this the center, and where he sees his heads out there in the mirror and in photographs and so on, and his friend sees his head. That's his human region. And his friend approaches. Now, bear in mind that your field of vision is constant in size. See, because you only see one. I don't see a second. So how big is it? Well, it's as big as whatever's in it. And it fades out, of course, all the way around into nothing. And things within the field of view grow bigger or smaller. So we say we're going up to them if they grow bigger and moving away if they grow smaller. But they never get bigger than the field of view. They go off the edge, you see. So his friend approaches and notices that his head, that his friend can observe, as his friend moves towards his center, towards him, Douglas's head grows bigger and bigger, you see, until it fades out when you get very close. It's a patch of skin. You can't see the whole head anymore. And then his friend moves back, and in the friend's field of view, there's Douglas's head, and then it shrinks, and the shoulders and torso come into view, and then further away, the whole body comes into view. And going further away, if they were outside, I suppose, his body shrinks and shrinks and is lost in the landscape. And so Douglas describes this as his friend mapping out the boundary of his human region. And his head is quite large around about here, and then gets, smaller, and his body gets smaller. So many meters away is the boundary of my human region, and somewhere about here is the inner boundary, the outer boundary and the inner boundary. And so you've got, I would say, at center you're nothing, space, and then in a belt or a zone around you is your human region. And of course, if your friend goes round the back, they see the back of your head, or they stay at this range and they go up and they see the top of your head. But that is your human region. But they go further away, and you disappear as a person. And they come close, you'll disappear too. So this is just the first introduction to some of the ideas, and it's taken from observation, isn't it? And it's very different from what common sense says I am, says what you are. But Douglas will bring common sense in and connect this first person view with common sense's view, or the third person view. But I'm just going to pause here because that is such a different way of appreciating what one is. One is like a hollow shell. See, you've got a shell, a human region around you, as if they're ghosts inhabiting that region, ghosts of yourself, really. And if the observer comes closer, they'll move out of that zone and leave it behind, you see. All right, so I will pause there, and in the next section, next chapter, we'll go on to the next ideas. So we have looked at being headless and how our human appearance occupies a zone or a belt around us, and there's an inner boundary and an outer boundary to my humanity. Now, what happens next in the book is that Douglas points out that if here at center I'm nothing, and over there in the human region is where I appear human, and say you are in that region observing my head, see, or anybody's in that region and they're looking towards my center here, they see my head. But this means that I am in your human region. Over there, you're in the same headless condition as I am, presumably. And I am out here occupying your human region. And we call this trading faces. I am out here at this distance from you and have your face. I'm empty for your face. I see your face. You don't. And you are over there. You're empty at center, but you're in my human region. And Douglas's image for this is a shell with a kernel, a nut, I suppose, with a kernel and a shell. And I am centered here in the shell of your human appearance, and you are centered over there in the shell of mine, see? And I reflect you here as in a mirror. So trading faces that I have your appearance, you have my appearance is the first idea. But along with that is the fact that I am receiving your appearance here in this mirror-like emptiness. And Douglas calls this reflection. I reflect your appearance here, and you reflect or receive my appearance there. Now, when Douglas says here and there, it has to be qualified. It is convenient and is important and has a lot of sense in it. But when I look here, this here doesn't have an address. It's not located in London or anywhere. It's a convenient way of talking about this. This center and region is another image for this non-verbal experience. And so when I say I receive your appearance, your face, here as in a mirror, you see, and you receive mine there as in a mirror, the here and the there are, well, let's just say they're provisional. Very useful. So, this first idea that we trade faces, I have your appearance here, or even I am you. I am not Richard here. I'm empty for you here. And I can describe you because I'm receiving you here. And you're doing the same towards me. But here's the complication, or the next thing that goes with it, is that although I receive you here, I act as if you're there. You look to be there. And Douglas calls this projection. I reflect your appearance here, and I project it back on your center. And I insist that the face that I see here is really there. And you do the same for me. You receive my appearance over there. But if you were to point at my face, you wouldn't point at yourself. You point out where you see my face, and it's both here and there. So, as I said in the first section on these ideas, Douglas presents the whole building, and they're not building up to the building brick by brick. And so there are many ideas here that we will review and come back to. And one of the ideas is that he calls it the law of elsewhereness, because your face is both here and there. It's not just here, it's not just there. It's somehow both. And I insist that your face is there. I act as if your face is there, even though I know that if I approached you, I'd lose it. It's not there. If I go up to you, it's no longer there. And if I could go all the way there, you see, and turn around and look out from your space, well, I would see other people, including now. I'd see Richard, I suppose. And so you seem to be there, but when I go up to you, you're not there. You're out here. And this is related to the law of elsewhereness. And it relates actually, as I understand it, to an idea of a philosopher, Alfred North Whitehead. And he was a relativist, I suppose. And he had this idea of the fallacy of simple location. Things are not simply there or here. They are, in Douglas's terms, they are there from here, or here from there. So your face, which I receive here, is coming from your center there. And your face, which I see there, I project back, I project there from here. So these are new ideas. And in Douglas Harding's book on Having No Head, which is easy to read, popular book, when I read it many years ago, I remember, I think this is true, I remember there was just a part of a sentence saying that this vision of headlessness will, if you live it, will profoundly affect you at every level, including how you think. I never got that at the time. I thought, what do you mean? It's not about thinking, it's about seeing. Why should it affect the way you think? And now I understand it a little bit better, because our normal way of thinking, the structures of our thinking, our thought, is based on me here and you there. I see you. I here as a thing, see you there as a thing. And language operates on that assumption. And our way of thinking obeys that structure in a way. But here is Douglas Harding introducing a different way of seeing and having to think about this in a new way. it isn't me here seeing you. You're appearing here in me from there, and I appear over there in you from here. And this is a description of what happens between two observers. I reflect you here, receive you here from your empty center there. At this range, I'm in your human region, so I'm picking up your human appearance, and I project it back to you. Now, you can understand this in terms of how you become self-conscious in your life. And as a baby, you're headless, and you reflect. See? And you're not yet aware in any developed sense of what others see you to be. You're pre-verbal, you see. But growing up is learning to understand what you are in the eyes of others. You cannot see yourself directly. You cannot see your own head. See? So how do you find out about your head, or your name, or your age, or your address, or what kind of person you are? How do you find out? See? Well, this view says that you find out through those around you, because they reflect back to you what they see, you see, and hear, and understand you to be. So growing up is shifting center, putting yourself in the other person's shoes, see, at their center, where your human appearance happens, that region, you see. And then accepting what they say, because they don't just register your appearance out there. See, as you're growing up, first you look in the mirror, that's not you. Then you learn that that's you, but it's still out there. Then you must take that on board and kind of take that face from the mirror, project it back, see, on yourself, and imagine you're behind a face. That's what everyone else sees, you don't. And receive that projection so that you have a deepening conviction that you are that. Otherwise, you can't understand what you are, and you can't function in society. So this ability to see yourself as others see you, or as Douglas Harding says, shift center over there to the nothing over there, and look back at yourself, you see, and appreciate what you are, and take that on board. And you give as good as you get. So I receive your face here, but that's only half the story. I project it back. I insist it's over there, and I insist you take responsibility for it, even though I know if I go up to it, it's not there, you see. Law of elsewhereness. See, the fallacy of simple location. You've got steam coming out of your ears? You're blowing a fuse? We'll come back to this. This is called a projective reflective couple. Two observers. See, the content of my center here, I project onto your center. And the content of your center, you project. And it's one system. It's one system. You see, with two poles, like a battery. You see, not separate, but I'm in you and you're in me. So I am going to pause there because there's a lot in that, and I've covered it in a very rough and ready way. And we will be exploring this in other contexts and seeing how it works out, and so on. So take a deep breath, and I will see you when you're ready in the next little section. So we've looked at projection and reflection, what happens between mutual observers, that here at center I'm nothing, and you are located over there. If you're with me, looking at me, you're located over there in my human region, and you are in receipt of, you reflect my human appearance. And I'm at the same range from you and receive or reflect your human appearance here. I'm in your human region and you're in my human region. And then we project the content of what we find at our center, what we reflect here. we project that on the other. And so I see your face here, and I say it's there. And you see my face there, and you say it's here. And that's how I become self-conscious. You see what I am, and you tell me, and you insist that's what I am here. And growing up, I must not just hear about what's happening out there in my human region, but take it on board and act as if I am that here. And I expect the same of you. So, with mutual observers, projective reflective couple, two poles of one battery, see, exchanging the content of our awareness. So that's where we've got to. So the next section in that first chapter is called The View Out. And Douglas Harding just steps back, as it were, and just looks at what is given in his center. And of course, all kinds of things are given, and people and trees and clouds and stars and animals and so on. And he reflects them here. I reflect them all here, right here. But then I project them all out, leaving the center empty. And I project my hand just to here, see, and the computer screen a bit further, and I project the tree out the window even further, and I project the clouds further, and if it's night, I project the stars even further. And so these objects that I receive all here, I locate or project them out to different regions in my universe. And when Douglas Harding says project, it's not something that takes effort. See, just as it takes no effort to reflect everything here, the projection is just given, but there is as Douglas Harding talks about it, the passive side of receiving everything and the active side of projecting. And so I project my hand to here, the tree to further away, these zones, you see, where I project the star to a very distant zone. And the star has to stay out there in that zone. It's got a funny thing, is that there's no social climbing. You know, the tree can't go to the region of the star, and the star can't come any closer. You see, there are these regions around the center, not just the human region, where stars are in the distance, galaxies even further, see, clouds closer, people at a middle distance, and very close, if I'm looking out and I've got a microscope, you see, I'll see cells. They belong at a very close range. And then if you're looking at the world at even closer range with special microscopes and so on, then you'll see molecules and eventually register in somewhere or another atoms and particles. And this is the very close near range of one's universe. And at the center, there's nothing. You're empty. So you receive everything here and then project it out. Cells very close, people, as in a giant centrifuge, leaving the center empty. You scatter everything, you see. It's a wonderful image. Very freeing. You're empty. It's everything is given here, and then you send it out to its proper station. And because there's nothing left at center, then you could say that you go with your projection. I go with the tree there, and I go with the star there, you see. And then, when I'm there, see, I turn around and contemplate myself from that range, you see, and from that range, I'm a star. So this is the view out from the center into this world. So all given here, yet as in a giant centrifuge, scattered to every region, and I go with it. And when I get there, I turn around and view myself from all these different regions, you see. So then Douglas says, well, that's the view out. And common sense says, I mean, the view out isn't really the place to start. That's so variable. And he says, does your hatter, is your hatter concerned whether you are filled with a star or a cell? No, it makes no difference to the size of your hat, you see. So common sense says you need to look at what you are from the outside. So the first chapter is called the view out and the view in. And the view out is from this headless center with a headless body out into your human region, and then the other regions, and eventually your region of stars and galaxies, you see. That's the view out, which is layered with these regions. That's how it's given. That's how it's given. So observing and taking seriously the way it's actually given, relative to your center, relative to you, as it's given to you. But common sense says, no, it's the view in that's important, you see, and from that view, you're a person. So, well, Douglas Harding replies, well, okay, well, let's look at that, you see. So the thing about viewing me from my human region and finding a person here is you've got to keep on the move. You don't want to just look from the front. You want to look from the side and the top and the bottom and so on. And however, if that's okay to move around my center looking at me at that range from all these angles and adding them together, a kind of composite portrait, so adding the front view to the back view and the top view and the side view and moving around, you see, that's one thing. But if you can move around, why can't you move in and out, you see? And if my observer now moves away from me, well, I change. As we've already explored a little bit, I shrink and I get absorbed into the landscape. Or I live in London, you see, so if the observer, my observer, is moving away from me, I'll get smaller and my garden, if I'm outside, will come into the picture, and other gardens and the neighborhood, you see, it's still looking at me from there, and then eventually the city. And then you go away and the countryside around London comes in. Eventually you get England, and eventually Europe and the planet and the star. I'm not one thing. I change with range, as my observer goes away. So if it's all right to go around me and see me from different angles, why is it not all right to go away, you see? Or if my observer then comes towards me, see, and travels back through all these layers, see, reporting, well, now you're a planet, oh, now you're London, oh, now you're your neighborhood, oh, now you're a single individual, oh, keep going, you see. Oh, now you're a collection of cells, now you're just one cell. That's filling their field of view. The field of view is constant, you see. And now I am a cell. And to go up to the cell and eventually find a molecule, giant protein molecule or something. See, now I'm a molecule. You see, why is one layer take the precedence over all the others, as it were? They're all views of me. Now, here's another idea that is involved in this: is the idea of horizontal observation and vertical observation. So what Douglas means by this is horizontal observation is when you observe a center at a certain range and move around it. So if you're observing my center from several feet away, then you see Richard and you move around it. That's horizontal. You're staying at the same range. But if you then move away or towards my center, and thereby seeing that I change radically, this is moving vertically. And that's between two mutual observers. If you are looking towards my center here, where I'm nothing, and you're just going around it, you'll see Richard. Or if you're further away and just going around it, you'll see my planetary face. You see, and you observe me as the planet from many different angles. But moving in and out is vertical, and I grow and I ungrow as you move away and towards me. Douglas then puts these two pictures together, the view out and the view in. And the thing about these two views is they are different views of the same regions. And the view in towards my center is of my head, my human body, my city, my country, my planet, my star, see, or my cells. And my view out is of other people, other cities, other countries, other planets, other stars. So they're all, these views between mutual observers are of the same regions, but are different views of them. There's one system of two mutual observers. And the thing is that, and this is where the law of, what Douglas calls the law of equality comes in. Because if I am in your human region, you're in my human region. See, we're equal status, both human. But say we're on opposite sides of a valley, and, well, I see a town there, and you see a town here. We're towns for each other, or villages or something. And if we go even further away, and I mean many thousands of miles, you see, well, I'm looking, say, at Mars, and Mars, or you, say you're over there, are looking back at me. Well, I receive Mars here and tell you, project that back on you, that you're Mars, you're a planet, and you see the Earth out there and project it back. So we have now got equal status as planets. It takes a planet to see a planet, a star to see a star, a person to see a person, a cell to see a cell. This is a law of equality, that the status of mutual observers is equal, but it changes as they draw apart or move together. It's very flexible, elastic, you see. Law of equality. One system of regions seen from different points of view. The view out, the view in. And so we've got a lot here. This is the building, this is the structure, the theory of everything. That I am empty here for you. It's easiest to illustrate it at the human level because we're so used to it. Because, you see, we are so used to putting ourselves in the other person's shoes without even thinking about it. Because I am, in a way, more aware of my head than my headlessness. That means I'm more out there in others, looking back and seeing myself as they see me and wearing that, than I am here seeing my headlessness. See, I'm very familiar with the other view. And so I'm very familiar with shifting center. But when I look further out at night at a star, it's the same mechanism. The star is appearing here in me from there, see? And I'm projecting it back. I say it's over there. But then I can shift center, see? And it's not shifting to another place. It's just, because the nothing at center isn't anywhere. See? And I shift center to that star and turn around and look back at myself and understand, recognize that I'm a star. The stars are like mirrors telling me I'm a star. See, like looking in a mirror in a way. And the planets are like mirrors saying at that range, much closer, I'm a planet. Just as when I'm with people, they are like mirrors reflecting back or projecting back onto me what I am from there. See. So now we are filling out the picture a little bit, and projection and reflection, the law of equality, the law of elsewhereness. You can't pin yourself down or anything down to a single location. You go up to it, it's not there, it's somewhere else. Okay. The fallacy of simple location. Take a deep breath. And I will pause there and hopefully see you in the next little section. This section is the last section on the first chapter, I think. View out and view in. And one thing that Douglas adds in this chapter is a response really to common sense that just dismisses this as a trick of perspective, really. And Douglas, in this subsection called the elastic self, he says it's not just a trick of perspective. I'm operating in the light of this all the time without really thinking about it, I suppose. The equality of self and other, of mutual observers, the equality of here and there, and how they are dependent on each other. There is one system. And so he says, well, he used to have a dog then called Plato. He says, well, when I tell my dog to come here, I mean from there at the other side of the room to here, this side of the room. But when my friends visit, you see, from across the road, they come from the house there to this house. So my there has just expanded along with my here, house there, house here. But then when a football team visits, they come from another city there to this city. See, and my here has expanded to this city. I mean, I might have to travel across the city to see them play, you see, but it's still here relative to there. And when a foreigner visits England, say from France, well, they visit, you see, a foreigner visits here, and they might come to quite a different part of the country, you see. Our here and there are equal countries now. See? And he says, if Martians were to land here, even if they landed on the other side of the planet, they would land here. My here has now grown to this planet and my there to that planet. And of course, if we got caught up in Star Wars and we were being attacked by another star, you see, well, that star there would be attacking this star. My here would be the whole of this star. See? And it says, and this is something that you identify with. I identify with my body here. That's my here now. Now I can't see my body as I look out, see part of it, can't see my head. But I kind of feel it's behind me. I mean, that's going out and appreciating that for others I am a body, I am in a body, and I feel that, taking that on board as being here, as opposed to there, another body, you see. So it's as if I feel behind me my body, or I feel behind me my family. See, I expand to my family with respect to another family. Or if I am with, we're attacked by another country, then I feel for this country. I'll defend this country. These are not tricks of perspective. We operate on this. We identify with the here as opposed to there. And it's elastic. The elastic self expands and contracts, you see. So it's a very familiar thing. Another thing that Douglas Harding talks about in this first chapter is depth, the depth of the picture. And he points out that, because a lot of this got to do with range, you see, range. You receive the star here, but you project it millions of miles out there. he points out that you can measure across the field of view and you can measure vertically, but this direction, depth, is different because nowhere to measure from. See, and if you've got a ruler, say something to measure across, there you can estimate the difference and vertically. But when you measure, bring it round, the ruler shrinks, the pen shrinks. So it's just, now you understand it's so long, but it's kind of got hidden. It's been absorbed. And there's nowhere to measure from. Here for me and you for there. There's nowhere to measure from. Everything is sort of either all here or all there. Is either no distance or kind of infinite distance, in a sense. And when Douglas Harding points these things out, he explores what they mean. And this fact that you can't see the distance, but you can call it depth. There's depth, but you can't quantify it. You can quantify the measure across and vertically, but this, you can't directly quantify it unless you take a third position where you would, if we were in a room together, from that point of view, two heads, you see, and measure between them. So then I import and understand that idea of third person distance, that view from there. I import it in and imagine, oh, well, we're only 6 feet apart or whatever it is, you see. And that we need to do that, obviously. And you can tell depth. I mean, I can tell the tree is nearer than the clouds, and the computer screen is even closer. When I move, the computer screen moves and the tree doesn't, you see. So lots of ways of determining the depth of things. It says, well, the thing about depth is that although things are here, they're there. And then theirness is significant. And when you can see this, say you have an official of high rank. It's a technique where you have them at the far end of the room, see, a long way away, and in a long room, like a hallway, and you have to walk out. They gain status by remoteness, or a king or a queen, you see. Is in that way, remoteness lends status and otherness. Because when everything is reflected here, it's me in a way. It's all me. And everything has the same status. It's all here. A tree is no nearer than the star. The star is kind of a colored light. It's all here. But when I project them there, when I get that depth and recognize the star is way, way further away, it's got a different status from the tree. It's a star. You see, it's older, it's bigger, or whatever, And so depth lends, with a remoteness, a kind of enchantment, a kind of majesty potentially, otherness, see? So it's both myself and both other, you see. Is both I and thou, as they say. And Douglas Harding, I'll talk a little bit more about this when we get to mind and body, I think. The distinction between mind and body. So you've got something to look forward to there. But the physical is the mental is the physical. It is a view in and view out. The view in is of my body, the view out is of my mind. See? I'll talk more about that. So anyway, there are one or two more things, lots more in that first chapter. But those are some of the general ideas. And painting the picture with broad brush strokes, as it were, and bringing into our appreciation of what the universe is, bringing into it the presence of the observer, you, and taking seriously that what things are is relative to their range from you, from your center. And when you have two mutual observers, then they are in each other's zones, you see, equal zones. And as they move apart, their status changes or move towards each other, staying equal status, exchanging the content of their mind, of their awareness, reflection, projection. The law of elsewhereness, you can't pin anything down. Go up to it, it's not there, it's somewhere else. See? So chapter 1, the view out, the view in of the hierarchy of heaven and earth, a new diagram of man in the universe, or a new theory of everything. And in the next section, I am going to look at the second chapter is called Our Knowledge of the World Outside. And this looks at the story of perception, how we perceive the world, how we understand our perception of the world, how we know the outside world according to science, and indicates how there's confusion in that story, and how this model of mutual observers exchanging content and maintaining equality and the law of elsewhereness and the ideas of horizontality and verticality, how these can make sense of the story of perception, how we know the world outside. So that's where we're going to go next. So I hope you are hanging on in there, and see you in the next section. I'm just inserting a little video here about the Youniverse Explorer. In the 1970s, late 1970s, Douglas Harding created a model to demonstrate the hierarchical model of the universe. And here it is. He called it the Youniverse Explorer, Y-O-U, Youniverse. And as you can see, there are pictures on each vein, as he called them. And on the outsides are the view in. So at a great distance, you're a galaxy. Closer to, you're a solar system, star. Even closer, you're planet Earth. And that's humanity, individual person. You're a cell. That's a molecule, atom, particle. And here in the middle, you see this here. This represents you at center. And it's rather good because it reflects the layers, as you can see. Rather amazing. Now, on the insides of these veins, as Douglas Harding called them, you get the view out. So the view in at great ranges of view as the Milky Way, but the view out is of the other galaxies, sort of seen through telescopes, of course. And at a closer range, you're this star, this solar system, and looking out at night, you don't see your star face, you see all the other stars. See? And so on down the hierarchy. At the level of a planet, the view out at night using telescopes is Jupiter and Saturn and the others. And so on. At the level of the human being, represents you at a range of, I don't know, 6 feet, 10 feet. But the view out is of other people and yourself there in the mirror. You feel yourself in there. And going down the hierarchy, at very close range, you're a cell, and the view out from that cell, if you could take it, would be other cells. You're space for other cells. So what you are changes with the range of the observer, and each vein here represents a projective reflective couple. See, so the view in is of a galaxy from other galaxies. See, so my experience of the projective reflective couple or relationship at this range is the other pole of the battery. And as a star, you see, I'm in projective reflective relationship with other stars. See, they are in me and I'm in them. And the planet Earth, of course, you trade faces with Jupiter and Mars. And of course, at the human level, where are we here? You see, you would see my face, and I've got yours. Trade faces, projective, reflective couple. So I think it's brilliant. Someone said if you can't make a model of your idea, you haven't understood it. And this was Douglas's creation in the late 70s, an updated version with color pictures and so on. A hierarchy of a new theory of everything. So I hope that makes it a little bit uh, easier to imagine and this beautiful organism that you are. Chapter 2 is called My Knowledge of the World Outside, and in this chapter, Douglas looks at the way science explains how we see the outside world and picks holes in it, and then offers another model for how we see the world. And the model that science presents, put very briefly, light comes. How do I see my hand? Light comes from the sun, lands on my hand, reflects off it, see, into my eye, kind of paints a picture of my hand, upside down, I think, in the back of my eye. And Douglas says, well, I've got problems with this story already, that the what I see of my hand is not really my hand, it's just the surface of my hand. And in fact, since what I see is the light that bounces off my hand, I'm seeing what my hand isn't. It's the light that my hand rejects. And because it takes time for the image of my hand or whatever it is to travel from there to my eye, I'm not seeing my hand now, I'm seeing it as it was. So what is it that travels from my hand to my eye? See, is it sort of light that codes the shape and color of my hand and transports it, and it's decoded in my eye? But then the story goes on all the way to the brain, so that science tells me that it's not me that sees that picture of my hand on the back of my eye. It's cells that register that and register, tiny bit of it, and a chemical reaction or something happening there. And then that is transmitted via nerve cells to my brain. Countless primitive animals sort of pushing and pulling and sending a message all the way to my brain. That's not my hand, or even a part of my hand, presumably. It's an electrical message or something traveling. And eventually it gets to my visual cortex, where I say, I see my hand. So first of all, that whole, according to science, that whole journey has to be interrupted. Of course it does. So if it's interrupted anywhere along that journey, I don't see my hand, such as if I put my hand in my pocket, or it's night, or I hurt my eye, or my brain, you see, is affected. Then there's an interruption. I don't see my hand. But it's safe to say that no surgeon is ever going to find a copy of my hand in my brain. And if they did, that would not solve the problem, because then you'd have the problem of how do I see that without eyes now? And it's a tiny copy, shrunken copy of a hand in my brain in the dark, no light to see it by. I mean, but then how can I know that what I am seeing there at the terminus in my visual cortex is anything like my hand out there? it's a copy of my real hand. How can I be sure it's anything like the copy? Because all I know is what's happening in my brain. And in fact, how can I even know there is a hand out there or a world outside? Because all I know is in my brain. Even my brain is saying that this vision of the world I've got now is in my head, in my brain. As if my brain is all the way around this picture, and this picture is very small. See? So Douglas is pointing out the difficulties with this model. But he then says, well, even so, we take on trust that our perceptions of the world are true. And they have practical importance. If I've hurt my eye, I go to the optician. I trust what the optician is seeing and all of that, you see. So how can we reinterpret or explain all the data of science, lots of data of what's happening in the eye and in the brain and all of that? How can we understand all this data in a way that doesn't contradict itself? See? And Douglas says, well, the confusion in the story is this, that science puts both the world and my head in the same place. It says, my experience of the world is here in my head. Whereas Douglas Harding's model says, no, the world is here, that's the same, but my head is there. And my eyes are out there in the optician, and my brain is out there in the brain surgeon. That's the view in. And my experience of view out is here at my center. And I am not overcrowding the spot using Douglas Harding's model, putting both the sun and my head here. Because he says the way that we then explain it is because you can't have both the world and your head in the same place. So one of the two has to be sacrificed, in a sense. And he says it's generally the world. So you say that, well, I have a head here, and the world is here, but it's not a kind of physical thing here. How could it be here in my head? It's an idea. But this idea you can't find in my head, you see. It's sort of outside of space. So that's full of difficulties. So what Douglas Harding is saying, that at center you reflect the world, you receive the world here, not in your head. And your head is out there in your region, and the two don't mix, you see. Now, if you take that model of regions, center and regions, and take the data that science is providing of the light coming from the sun and bouncing off part of your body, your hand, into your eye, and then in message going into the brain. If you take that story but reinterpret it, because the normal idea is that light sort of bounces off your hand and into your eye, it bouncing off one object to another. Whereas what Douglas Harding is saying is actually this story, light coming from the sun, coming through the atmosphere, landing on your body, going to your eye, is actually the observation of an observer moving vertically through your regions towards you and reporting the changes that happen in each region. Changes happening at the level that you're a planet with the atmosphere, and then noticing that as the light comes onto your body, it's observing your hand, and then going closer to your body, which is to the next layer in, your cells in your eye, observing the changes there in your cells, and coming closer, observing the changes in potentially the molecules, atoms, and so on, down to the center. See? So it's not like bouncing from one object to another, kind of horizontal, see, but vertical. Observing how one region contains the next and affects the next, you see, and so on into the center. And then Douglas says, well, the thing is that this is actually not the story of how you see your hand or the sun. You end up with nothing unless you then turn around and instead of looking in, say at me, you look out with me and then see I'm capacity for my hand and for the sun and for the world. So when you have two observers, mutual observers, say you and I are in a room together and I'm seeing you. See, what, in terms of Douglas Harding's model, what this means is that in effect, you at center are broadcasting an image of yourself to me. You're broadcasting a signal. And at center, there's nothing. But if I'm observing you at very close range, see, I'm coming away from you, you're no longer nothing at your center, very close range, I might see an electron. I move out away from you, I am picking up the signal you are transmitting at a greater range. See, it takes longer to get to me, it takes time to travel. And now I see you're an atom. I move away and other atoms come into the picture and you're a molecule, eventually a cell, and then eventually, you're a person. See, I am now at this region where you are manifesting as a person. But actually, there's no reason to stop there. If I go away further, the signal from you has more time and will evolve further so that eventually you become a country, a planet, a star, a galaxy. So if I am in the same room as you, I'm in the region where nothing has evolved to be a person here. You've grown up to be a person here. And you grow up and arrive here in my emptiness, not in my head, not in my brain. See, that get in the way. See, I see you here in this emptiness. It's given. It's exactly as it's given. See, but I understand that that has evolved across that distance, as it were, and time, so that I now see you as a person here. Now, as you are evolving to appear in me as a person, you are, in effect, you are passing through the layers of my appearance. And over there, I am a person with a head, you see. And as you transmit your message towards me that eventually evolves into a person, that message passes through, see, my human layer, see, then my cellular layer. See, as a scientist is observing with changes, see, and then the molecular, atomic, so that eventually, in effect, the emergence of your appearance here in me breaks down all my regions to nothing so that you arrive here as a person. If I maintained anything here, head or cell or atom or anything, it would obstruct, it would get in the way. I have to be utterly empty here, broken down to nothing to receive you here. And the same is happening the other way around, that my appearance is evolving from nothing here to a person in you. It's a journey, it's an evolution. And my appearance passes through all your regions until it arrives at your center. If it doesn't get all the way to your regions, you won't see me. You know, the journey has to be complete all the way to your center. And this is an exchange between two mutual observers, so that you're immanent in me and I'm immanent in you. And you build up from nothing there to a person in me. And as that happens, I break down from being a person there to being nothing here to receive you, see. How does Douglas Harding think about mind and body? In his view, mind is the view out and body is the view in. So my body, depending on the range of the observer, might be my human body or my planetary body or my solar body or my cellular body. That's the view in from there. And my view out is of your body, your human body, or a planetary body, or a star. So view in from the periphery is my body. View out from the center towards the periphery is my mind. And looking at each other, if we were in the same room together, we would be trading faces. We would be a projective, reflective couple. So I've got your face here, I project it back, you've got my face there, you project it here. It's one system with two centers, two poles, a battery, energy flowing, exchanging. I project the content of my mind onto your center, you project the content of your mind onto my center. So in this sense, mind being the view out from a center towards the other is interchangeable, because my view out towards you is my mind, your view out of the same region is your mind, and your view in towards me from that region is my body, and my view of you from this region is your body. So it's one set, one region seen from different sides. So mind, body are not separate. They're just different directions, different ways of looking at the same region. And so the whole system is mind-body or psychophysical, see, depending on the direction you are looking in. So in normal parlance, we say, well, my mind is my thoughts, and this is my body. And a way to understand that in terms of this model is that in terms of the view out, my mind, I can distinguish between different aspects. So I distinguish between my thoughts and feelings, you see, and the tree, and my hand, which is my body, so between my mind and my body and the world. But according to this view, that is all given within my mind. I mean, that's very useful because I can indicate different aspects of my mind to another person and say, you know, I'm aware of my feelings now, are you? And they can distinguish, you can distinguish between those different aspects. But all that is given in one's awareness as mind, you see. So normally we think of the world being out there, and I'm looking at it from a head here. And my experience of the world can't be found in my head, in my brain, but somehow my brain, this is just one way of thinking about it, creates a copy of the world, see. And from that point of view, as I mentioned before, this comes with all kinds of difficulties, because how can I be sure that this copy of the world that I'm somehow experiencing who knows where is at all the same as what is actually out there? Because, I mean, for a start, they're separate from each other, and one's a copy and all of that. So according to this hierarchical model, what I'm seeing is not a copy, because you have arrived here in my central nothing and are present as the real you, as your body given here in my mind. and the same the other way around. So the tree I see is not a copy of the tree. Over there isn't a tree, you see. Over there isn't a person if I'm looking at you. You're here in me and I'm in you. So here are some little drawings that Douglas Harding drew. They're in the Hierarchy of Heaven and Earth. And the first one, A is mind. That indicates the view out from your center into your regions. What your awareness is full of, the view out. Next diagram is A is body, and that is the view in towards you, towards the center from the regions. So that's what others see of you. And depending on their range, they'll see either a human body or a planetary body, and so on. The next diagram, A is mind and B is body, is that projective reflective couple setup. So A is mind, looking out from my center, I look towards your center, B, and I register your body. My mind is filled with your body. And B's mind, same the other way around. Your mind, your awareness there, is filled with my body. So, view out, your mind, view in, your body, different aspects of one projective reflective system. So that the whole system is mind-body, psychophysical. The Hierarchy of Heaven and Earth has 24 chapters. It's divided into 6 parts, and part 1 is 3 chapters, and it starts with the view out and the view in. Chapter 2 is my knowledge of the world outside. Chapter 3 is projection and reflection. So I'll just say a little bit about projection and reflection. We've covered it a little bit already, but it's such an important idea that it's worth spending just a little bit more time on it. So if I'm looking at you, we are looking at each other, we are mutual observers, and we are in each other's human region. And I reflect your appearance here, and I project it back onto your center there. And you do the same for me. And I build up from nothing here to be a person there, and you break down from being a person here to being nothing there. And the same way, the other way around. Now, when I look at you and receive you here and project what I experience here back onto your center, I am letting you know, verbally and non-verbally, what you are at this range. And I'm saying that you are that. And because you are nothing at center, you have nothing at center to ward off what I project on you. Now, let's say that there are 10 people looking at you, and they're all looking from a different angle, so they all have a different view of you. Now, which view is right? Well, according to this model, because you're nothing at center, they're all valid. You're not any particular thing or anything at center that you can say, well, you're right because it's similar to what I'm at center, but you're wrong because it's quite different. Because there's nothing at center, all the projections, if they're sincere projections, sincere views of you projected onto you, are valid, you see. Now, let's say that you, one of your observers observes you to be quite different from all the rest. You see, well, you commonly might say, well, that person's wrong, the others are right. But from this point of view, because there's nothing at center to measure it against, you have to say, well, that person isn't wrong, but it's a highly unusual, eccentric view that doesn't carry much weight. In other words, all the others carry weight, but this one doesn't. What that means is that you can weigh one view against another, or one view, one view out of 10 against the other 9, and the weight of opinion, the weight is in favor of the 9, but must include that one eccentric view, you see. And it's probably got something to tell you that the others don't in some way or another. See? And so this really leads to a tolerance of views, because there's nothing to defend or weigh a view against at center. So all views of you are valid. Now, if 9 people out of 10 project a view of you and the 10th person is very different, then those 9 views will gain traction, and the 10th view will be hardly attended to or taken seriously. It's still valid, but doesn't carry much weight, you see. And the majority view is powerful. So, for example, if you have, I don't know, a saint, and everyone around the saint sees that, projects onto the saint holiness or power, you see, or whatever it is, then the more that is projected onto that center there, the more it becomes real, because it's majority, and it gains in momentum. So saints gain power from their worshippers, or kings and queens gain power from their subjects because of the projection. See? So this is a mutual exchange between centers, and it is one system. And although if I am talking to you, I am based at this center, I am able to shift center to your point of view, to see the system, to see myself from that angle. Now, I never wholly leave my own center when I shift to your point of view. See, I maintain contact with both centers, but I can be sort of mainly here or mainly there in a way. And when I shift over to your center and appreciate your view of the world, see, and what it's like to be you, then I'm living over there as you. And because it's one system, you see, what it's like to be you, or say I look at a tree, then I am receiving the tree here, and I'm projecting that image and the strength of it and the grace of it and the height of it back onto the tree. Well, I go with that projection, you see, because I'm not just simply based here at this side of the exchange, at this center. I can shift center. We can all shift center. We do it all the time to that tree. So that as well as seeing it from the outside, I'm kind of experiencing it from the inside. See, because my sense of its strength, say, I'm looking at a tree now, that I'm projecting, I receive here and I'm projecting there onto that center. My appreciation of its strength, because I'm at both centers, see, is an appreciation of its strength. What is initially my projection, you see, becomes independent of me in a way. And so now my ability to empathize comes from my ability to shift center and to appreciate, in some sense, that I am both here and there. And the tree is in me and yet is over there. And the strength of the tree that I feel is its strength. And when I look at a bird flying, you see, I receive it here, but I project it there. but I'm projecting it on its center there. And I am partly over there at that bird's center, see, aware of itself through me, because one system, my awareness of the bird is not separate from the bird's awareness of itself. And so I feel myself flying in the bird, you see, or restless in the waves of the ocean, or gliding as the eagle, or swimming in the water as the fish. Because as soon as I become aware of that creature, for example, it is in me, I am in it, it emerges, grows up here to be the fish, and I project that back onto that center, but I go with it, and my awareness of the movement of the fish is not separate from its awareness, see? So I become the fish, You're not separate. You're not in something here separate from whatever it is over there. It's in you, you're in it. And you're not just here, you can shift center to be in both places, here and there, in both projection and reflection. And so when I look further at the star, well, I receive the star here. I project it back all the way there, but I go with it, you see. And going with it, I am aware of it as a star and aware of it at center as being room for other stars, for example. And what it's like, my awareness of its movement, see, its brightness, its shining, is, put another way, that star being aware of its own brightness and its place there in the heavens and its movement, being aware of itself in me, projection and reflection. So just a few thoughts about that very important central idea in the hierarchy of heaven and earth, projection and reflection between mutual observers, and that it is one system, and that you cannot divide off your reflections about the other as just yours. It's in the system. And my awareness of you kind of translates into your awareness of yourself and my awareness of being you. And again, we live in each other, not just as pictures in consciousness, but as real beings, see. So from here on in, the next section of the hierarchy, part 2, involves looking at the regions in more depth and moving through the regions towards the center and then moving out towards the periphery. And so I'll just say something about that. That clarifies the different regions and looks at them in some detail. But we'll just take a quick look at that and then move on into a few other ideas in the hierarchy. And just hopefully this is whetting your appetite, as I've said before, and hopefully will encourage people to read the book. Part 2 of the hierarchy involves identifying the different regions. And from the human region, where I appear human, moving closer is a cellular region, molecular, then down to the atom, the electron, and the center. And moving away from the human is humanity, life, the planet, the star, the galaxy, and then the whole, everything. And Douglas has a particular reason for identifying the regions in that way. They've got a particular level of individuality. But between regions are transitional zones, if you like, between my human body and my cellular region. You've got mesoforms, as they're called, the tissues, the organs, the clusters of cells, until finally you get down to one cell. So the first part involves moving in from the human towards the center and all the way to the center. It's like going down into the underworld. And in fact, this idea of layers, of regions, isn't new. It's traditional in Dante's medieval view of the cosmos. Had its spheres and its underworld, you see. But Douglas Harding is following the evidence of science. And starting with the human region and the observer moving in to where I'm cells. And of course, that recognition that Douglas had of being made of cells was one of the ideas, as I've said, that got him going on this whole inquiry into what am I. And so as the observer moves closer to me and observes what I am, the observer is helping me understand what I am at different ranges. And generally, a science studies a region. So you have the human sciences, and then you have biology studying cells, and then I guess you have chemistry studying molecules and so on, and physics coming closer. What Douglas Harding is doing is taking all that information from these different departments of science and putting them together in one vertically ordered structure or body, see, from the center all the way to the whole, and looking at the relationships between these different regions. So as my observer moves from seeing me as a person to seeing me as cells, my observer sees me break down from being a person to being cells. See? And a bit like opening a box, because I as a person have a certain individuality, a certain wholeness. And as the observer moves in, my observer analyzes me or breaks me apart or sees what I'm made of. I'm made of cells. And that is a breaking down process. And as the observer moves away, my cells come back together and reform as the person. So the observer is noticing how the layer of me, which is cells, is connected to the layer of me, which is human. And in order to see that connection or see how they are continuous, there's no separation between my cellular layer and my human. The observer has to move vertically to see that transformation. And this is really observing how my many-leveled body functions. Living bodies have metabolism. Metabolism involves breaking down and building up. See, catabolism and anabolism. And as the observer moves towards me, because the only way to find out what happens in that movement, vertical movement, is to join in the process and see it. See, as my observer joins in that process, my observer notices this metabolism, this breaking down. And as my observer moves up to the cell, to the individual that I am at that region, and moves closer, then my observer breaks that apart and finds the parts in that and goes up to one of the parts, a molecule. And that breaking down through the layers goes on all the way to electrons, see. And as my observer then moves back out, then the parts come together and form the next whole with new qualities, and those then bring in parts, other atoms come in and build a molecule, see, as my observer moves away. My observer moving away is observing that metabolic process, see, growth and ungrowth. So as my observer moves in, because it's a system, two-centered system, when my observer is observing me as a cell, is my observer a cell observing me? Are we equal in that way as observers, you see? And Douglas Harding says yes, but the way it works is that the observer gets a microscope and views me at very close range. So my observer is placing themselves in the region where I'm a cell at very close range. Now, if I was a cell being observed, you see, through a microscope, and I, if you can imagine this, looked up, I mean, cells don't see like that, but looked up and saw the lens of the microscope, well, of course, I wouldn't see another cell there, as I see your face, but I would see what is the equivalent of a mirror. I would see myself reflected there. So what is happening is that the scientist is using the microscope to step down or in to that level where I'm a cell and placing herself where she's in the cellular region. But she also is at the human region. It is the fallacy of simple location, you see. She's not just now just at the cellular region. She's looking at the cellular region, at me at very close quarters, from the human region, and then reporting on that. But when my scientific observer is observing me as a cell, from her point of view, her field of view is constant. And a cell for her is practically as big as a face at the human level, see. And you are, as the scientist, entering that world, and it's as big as any other world. And when the scientist then uses instruments to go even closer, see, microscopes or various instruments, to step down and in, to see what I'm made of, and to see how these layers interact, you see, then she is entering the world of the microscope or the world of the atom. See, a very vague country down there, very uncertain, see, very hard to observe. So the trajectory of the scientist coming in, noticing I am transforming, I'm breaking down, you see, into smaller and smaller units, so to speak, boxes within boxes, holes that break apart into parts, and then the part is the new whole, and that breaks apart. As I break down, so my observer is breaking down, you see, and getting very, very close to me. The question, again, is what's at the center? But the scientist observes behavior, observes effects, you see, not the central reality. Can't get that. But no problem, because I am at the central reality, the center here, and I can see what is at the heart of the electron, of the atom, of the molecule, of the cell, of the person, you see. And the source of all those appearances is this awake nothingness, see. Which, of course, I mean, it's a kind of scientific way of reaching what all the great mystics have been talking about, your true nature, this boundless awareness, see, that is no thing. And as the scientist is approaching, they're breaking me down. That's the the catabolic process, breaking down. See? And of course, the breaking down, once you're here and I look out, my object has grown, has built up to something in me. But this center now that we've got to by this journey in isn't just a kind of passive end of that breaking down process, because from this center I now act. And my action flows from the center through all the layers and affects first the electrons, which affect the atom, which affect the molecule, you see, the cell, the person. And so I'm moving my hands here. But that movement is at that region. And at a closer region, my cells are responding. And at a closer region, my molecules, the action flows out. And of course, the action that starts here and travels out through the layers, the action that is very close, is earlier than the action at the level of my human body. It takes time for the signal, for the impulse, for the reaction. You get stimulus, response, for it to flow out. And then returning out to the human region, no reason to stop. And as I look out into my human region, I don't stop at my hands. I extend into my tools, or my phone, or my computer, or my car. There isn't a clear boundary between my body, in this sense, and the rest of the tools around me. And as so I can then act, not just with my hand, but I grow a car and I drive, you see, and I grow wings and I fly. And I am extending, elastic self, growing, see. And according to my observer, as my observer moves back to see what I am, more and more of what I am, then from the point of view of seeing me as an individual person, my observer is a person, see, equal status. Stepping back, the next layer that Douglas identifies is the species. Now, there are mesoforms between the humanity and the individual, such as your church or your country, your state, you see, these different layers within the region. But the next region is, according to Douglas, humanity, which is the species, and that is in respect of other species. And then you step back from the species to include the other species, and you've got life. And then stepping back, life is one layer of the planet with the rocks and the water and the atmosphere and the core, see? And you step back and see the next whole, which is the planet, the star, the galaxy. And of course, as my observer is observing that I am a planet, see, then my observer is placing herself at that range where I'm a planet, where she is a planet. See? And as my observer steps back to get more and more of me in view, because my observer is helping me gain in knowledge about what I am, because the question is, what am I? So what am I made of? What am I at center? What am I part of? What are my larger bodies? And the thing about this is that the whole system is one living system. And as my observer moves away, they are observing how one region grows into the next. They're not separate. And in that sense, the whole system is alive. And when my observer observes I'm a planet, there's a lot in the hierarchy about these different levels. Douglas takes a lot of time to move through these levels, because each level Each whole that emerges from the parts has new qualities, emergent qualities. And so the emergent quality of life, and then the planet, new qualities, then the star. And so one gets a deep feeling reading the hierarchy. You've grown to be the planet, and you're a living being. And of course, to be the planet from your point of view is to be space for the other planets and the sun. And then you expand because the observer moves back, say from Mars, seeing you as a Earth, steps way back onto a star, see, way back outside the solar system, and now sees you as a star. So you've grown in status, you've grown in age, you've grown in size, you include more. So in this sense, you are now climbing the hierarchy. And it's a hierarchy because each level includes more, has higher status in lots of ways, see. And this journey, facilitated by your observer, see, and by the data of science, fits in with the mystic's journey of attempting to know oneself and gain more knowledge and climb the hierarchy. And there are very inspiring passages in the hierarchy where you get to the level of realizing you're a star, that you include all the other stars, and from those stars you're a star. But to be that star, you're empty for the other stars. And the other stars are in you, you're in them. And this fits in with a certain stage in the mystics' climb towards the whole, or towards God, if you like, where the mystic reports experiences of fire, of light, of heat. See, and that's the level of the sun. It's very interesting. But what happens as the observer recedes, a pattern that emerges, is that first you get the level that you're looking at. Say you're looking at the Earth. So that's an individual. And the observer moves away. So there's an optimum place to view the Earth, because much closer you lose the whole of it and you just get the land masses. Further away it shrinks to be a tiny dot. So there's an optimum place, like from the moon or something, where you see the beautiful Earth. And that's where it is most available, obvious as an individual. But in order to get to the next level, to see the star, as the observer moves away, other planets come into the picture, you see, and the sun. And then it's neither just the Earth and it's not yet the sun. And it's a in-between no man's land, or area where you're in between these levels, between, for example, there, the Earth and the star. And Douglas calls this the law of the spindle, where when you are moving through the layers vertically, you get an optimum zone where you see the object, and then you get a period where the object falls away and you're not yet risen to the next object. And it's a spindle is shaped like this, with a fat in the middle and then tailors off. So it's the optimum period is here, the optimum zone where you observe the Earth, that level of your body-mind. And then as you go away, it tails off until it grows again, you see. And in terms of the mystic's journey, which Douglas takes seriously as evidence in its own way of the hierarchy, of moving towards the whole, the mystic talks about dark nights of the soul. And in order to get to the next level of insight from this one, this realization of who you are, you have to die. You have to let go. You've got to go through this period of loss before the next realization comes. As the observer moves away, other stars come into the picture, and finally you get the galaxy. And traditionally, it has been understood that you worship the sun. That is a level of your being. Or worship the galaxy, the spiral shape, you see. Or worship the earth. And these are understood as living beings. And the hierarchy of heaven and earth is appreciating that the region of the human is not separate from any of the others and is not alive without the others, and that these other levels are living beings, living selves, living aspects or regions. The whole thing is alive. See? Now the quest is to grow and grow and grow and realize who you are and get to God or get to the whole or see the whole of yourself. In scientific terms, you want to get far enough away to see the whole of yourself. But because of the law of equality, when I am being viewed as a planet, I'm being viewed from another planet. And so I am not everything yet. And in order for the observer to include more, they've got to step back onto a star and include that other planet. So now I'm the solar system, including all the planets and the stars, you see. But now, as this star, I'm not the other stars. So the observer has to move back from all the stars in this galaxy, see, a spiral galaxy, to another galaxy to see more of me. But you can see it's never ending. That whatever I am for the observer is never the whole, because it doesn't include what the observer is. And the only way that you, well, before I say that, what happens as the observer moves way, way away? Well, I suppose there could be a couple of possibilities that ever greater wholes just keep appearing, see, and it's a never-ending progression of greater and greater wholes. But the greater the whole that the individual that I'm seeing, the more there is not that I'm not, you see. So that's one possibility. The other possibility is that finally the observer loses sight of me and I disappear over the cosmic horizon. And of course, if I disappear over the cosmic horizon, they have disappeared over the cosmic horizon. And this is a bit similar to what happens when the observer comes very close. They get very close and I disappear, you see. And so the whole thing is a bit like a spindle that at the extremities it fades out. So these are impossible, you know, you can't verify what actually happens. But anyway, the principle there is that as long as you are being viewed as something, you're being viewed from somewhere, and you don't include that. So you can't be finally viewed complete, the whole of you. See, you want to find out what all of you is, what you are, and the project fails. And this is typical of the mystic's journey to God, to the whole, is that it ends in failure. You think, oh, I don't believe anymore. I've lost all those good things on the way on that journey. Now, all is not lost, because the only way that you could observe everything is if you are nothing. As long as you are something for the other, you're divided the whole. So what Douglas then takes you through is you return all the way back through these layers, and you are shedding each layer of your body like a snake, really, shedding it as you come back, and so is your observer, until you get all the way to the center where you shed everything, and so is your observer. And here at the center, I am nothing. See? And then I turn around, I look out at the field of view, at the universe, which has no edge, no boundary. And I am now nothing, which is capacity for the whole. all the way to the stars, this representation of the whole. And this is a scientific, this is using scientific data of what I am at different ranges, but bringing in relativity and the equality of the observer and the observed. And at the end there, the law of equality, see, which is always dividing observer and observed into two poles, you see. When you return to the center where you're nothing, nothing is not equal to everything, see. And the law of equality is then replaced by the law of contrast, see. And if you've done the experiments, it's this. It's the view out and the view in. And the view out is something and the view in is no thing. But there's no dividing line, see. And the only way to be everything is to be nothing. This is a very quick, tour, missing countless delights in that journey, and it is so inspiring. You, as you read the book, you travel with the observer, and you grow and grow, and you discover what you are at ever greater levels in a way, and it's beautiful and true, you see. And then it all collapses, and you return to the center, to zero, you see, and then you receive everything here. Yeah. So that's part two. Tremendous journey, and it is looking at yourself and understanding you have regions, you see, and that you are in commerce with these regions, because these regions of the stars or the planets or the galaxy are observers, see, through which you can see yourself, and you see projection and reflection. The whole thing is alive, see. And C.S. Lewis, in his preface to the abridged version of the Hierarchy, he highly praises Douglas and talks about this book being that we needed a new vision. C.S. Lewis was big on the medieval hierarchical view of the universe, but it's a medieval one, and we can't accept that way of describing the universe in modern terms. And C.S. Lewis says, and here is a modern way of using modern data from science, a rediscovery of the way the universe is, that it has regions. And it's discovering it in a way that we can accept in terms of science, see. And it is a living universe. The whole thing is alive, and you're at the heart of it, and it is you, and it's not you. And it's here and it's there, and it's mind and body. It's just a wonderful, just a game changer, yeah. So that's part two. I'll be going on and saying more about the book, and including bringing in the aspect of time, because this so far has been mapping out what we are, what I am, what you are, in terms of space. And Douglas brings in the element of time, although there are a couple of chapters on the structure, how it functions, before he gets to time. So I'll see if I say something about that. So hope to see you in the next section. So the next part of the hierarchy of heaven and earth is part three, and there are just two chapters in this part three. The law of hierarchical symmetry is one chapter, and the organization of the hierarchy is the second chapter. And just very briefly, the law of hierarchical symmetry looks at these levels from subatomic particles to the galaxy, from the center to the whole, with the human in the middle. And Douglas points out that the upper suprahuman levels are paired with the infrahuman. So that means that, for example, at the planetary level, which is a degree of wholeness, that planetary whole has for components molecules, or a star has for components atoms, or a galaxy subatomic particles, or life would be paired with the cell. So as above, so below. And without going into much detail with this, this is relevant because as you are ascending the hierarchy and growing to ever greater wholes, body and mind, then in that journey, you could become filled with pride. You're growing ever more powerful. You're gaining ever more powerful insights and power. But your wholeness at the level of the planet is nothing without its components, the molecules, these very humble beings at that level. And your even greater wholeness as a star is nothing without your components as an atom. See? And, of course, as everything, you can only be everything by being nothing. So there's this balance that as you climb the hierarchy, you descend at the same time. So that's one chapter. The second chapter, the organization of the hierarchy, really describes the hierarchy like an office with floors, and the human is in the middle, and you have superiors above you and inferiors, your staff, below you. And when you receive an issue, you may just respond immediately to it. But you may have to ask your inferiors to do work. Or you may refer the problem to your superiors in an office, you see. And the further up that the request for guidance goes, the longer time it will take for it to come back, you see. And that is equivalent to posing a difficult question and sleeping on it, or longer, and waiting for the answer to come from these higher levels, which of course are paired with your lower levels. So the hierarchy, the organization of the hierarchy. Before I go into the time chapters, I'd like to just review three main phases of reflection and projection. So at the beginning of the hierarchy, Douglas Harding starts with himself sitting at the desk, taking himself to be a person, then noticing he hasn't got a head, and noticing that instead of his head, he's got the world given here at no distance, flat, see. And that is reflective of the first stages of our lives. When we're a baby, we don't yet know about our heads, and everything is given here, and as yet there are no others. There's no distance. Things don't have a volume. They're just flat. So you're looking at my face now. That's all you know about me. You don't know about the back of my head. You don't know about the distance between the front and the back. You see, because no back yet. Or if I hold a penny up next to the moon, they're just the same size. So the moon isn't bigger than the penny. Have the same status. Or I look at a star, it's just a point of light in the sky there, not a huge star, I don't know that yet. So everything is given here, same status, no others yet. Then, in the next phase, you project everything there. You notice it's there, it's located there. You learn about depth. And Douglas Harding's image is of a giant centrifuge scattering everything, leaving the center empty. So if I'm here and empty, I'm now separate from everything that is there. Even my hand is projected to there. And so what I'm looking at now is not me, and it's over there. And then I go out, so we can illustrate this at the human level, at this region, at this distance. I go out, turn around, look back at myself through your eyes and see my body from there. Now, when I do that, I am attributing mind to you. I am putting myself in your shoes, looking out from your mind and seeing, appreciating what you see from there. And you see my body here. See? And you project it. Tell me that that's what I am here. I'm not nothing. I am a body, you see. And I am educated really to take that so seriously that I take on board, it's what Douglas Hine calls the face game later on, that I have a face here. And in fact, that my face here is not dependent on you seeing it or you projecting it onto me. It's here whether or not you're there. And because my head is here and my mind is here, self-evidently, therefore my mind is in my head. See? And I do the same to you. I project your body on you, and I now think of you not as a projection, but something completely independent, that you're there whether or not anyone sees you, and you and your mind are in the same place over there, you see. Now the next phase is when I then see for myself I've no head, that here I'm empty for you, and recognize that my body, you see, is what you experience over there, but which you project back onto me. See, so my body is both over there and here, not just here. And I do the same for you. See, I receive your body here and project it there. So not just over there, it's also here. Law of elsewhereness, law of equality, because at this region we are both human. Now, one of the things that happens here as we're growing up is we are told we are only human. That's what you are. And it doesn't matter whether you're looking at another person or at a star or a cell, you're a human. So in that phase, when I look up at a star, I see myself as a human looking at this star. See? And I know that from over there, there's a star here. But I don't think of myself as that star. I might phrase it by saying that I'm a human being in that star, or I'm a human being on this planet, or I'm a human being in this country. But I don't say I am this country, or I am this planet, see, or I am this star. See? And the same when I look through a microscope down at a cell. See, I say I'm a human being looking at the cell there. Now when I then move into that next phase of being headless, you see, and realizing that I am a human being at this range, then when I look at the star, I realize, well, I am nothing here, you see. I am, what am I? And I then place myself at the center of that star. In other words, I attribute mind to the star, see, and place myself in that star's mind and look back and see myself in projective reflective relationship as a star, see, or as a planet, or place myself very close to a cell through the microscope and know myself as a cell. See. So when I recognize that my body is many-leveled, depending on the range of the observer, I am now recognizing that mind is many-leveled, that the star, the view from there is that star's mind, and the view from the planet is the planet's mind. See? And so not only is my body many-leveled, but my mind is. See? Because when I'm looking at the star, I'm attributing a mind to that star. Well, from that point of view, my mind is a star's mind. And this fits with psychology, doesn't it? The recognition that your mind is not just personal human. You've got layers of the unconscious. And you go to your racial mind. Or you go, images coming out of dreams of the earth goddess mother, you know, the living earth, or the star, you see, the fire and light, or the spiral image that comes out with the galaxy. These are indications of these levels of your mind, you see. So then that brings together the many-leveled unconscious, the many-leveled mind you have, deep, deep mind, with your many-leveled body. See, they go together. Now this recognition of this journey from the first stage of reflection to externalizing everything, what Douglas Harding calls disclaiming, everything that was here in my mind is now projected out and is not me. And then going out and turning around and recognizing what I am from there, and then receiving that back. So your face, that I'm recognizing it out there, I go out, I realize that over there is your mind, and your body is an expression here of your mind. See? So I take what was projected, your body there, I take it back, because I realize it's both, you see. And so the phase of taking back, that last phase, as it were, of both being, having everything here, but everything here is received from there. It's other. It's not just me again. In the first phase, it's all me, all one. Second phase is not me, and it's many. The third phase is both. So that means, in practical terms, that when I return to being aware of my true nature, I don't now disclaim the reality of me as a person. See? It's both. I'm not denying the reality of me as a person, but I am including in my oneness this sense of duality, of separation, of otherness and self, of here and there, see, within the one that where there is no here or there. See? And this this understanding of the importance of leaving home and in order to come back as something different, of moving from just being one to being many, and then being one that contains the many. See, it's been known for millennia in spiritual traditions and myths and so on. And in the Christian tradition, you can see it in the story of the prodigal son. And in the beginning, there was, start the story, just the father, God, see? I think it had two sons, and one of them went, the prodigal son, to the far country, left home. So he went to the far country and became one of the Egyptians, I think is in the story. It became other, became separate. See? And I think feeling in the end the suffering that comes from separation and the poverty of your resources there, turned around, looked back at the father and said, I'm going home. You see, I hope I'm received home. Sets off. The father sees the son returning and runs out and welcomes and brings back. Now the brother who stayed at home, loved by the father, but in a different way from the son who went away and came back, because the son now has come back with experience, with difference, is other, is yourself yet is not yourself. And in the Christian tradition, this is also framed as the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And there's just a traditional way of framing what projection and reflection is. So the Father is one, the Son is projected from the Father and is another, and the Holy Ghost is the relationship, the projective reflective relationship. So that the other is now included as other. And so that means if I'm in the same room as you, I am the one here, see, on my own. I accept your otherness, the reality of your mind out there, you see, and my body in you. That's the projection in from the Father to the Son. And then receiving you back, recognize, namaste, that the two are one. That what seem to be two are also one. That I am you. I am not you and I am you. And this means that now God the Father is someone to talk to. You've got company. In the beginning, you have no company. You see, no company. And you want to share your being. So you go through this incredible, mysterious process of coming up with another, you see, who is truly other. It would be no good if you return to the first phase and just realize that the other was just a projection in consciousness. It was just a picture in consciousness. It has no depth and no mind and no reality apart from you. I mean, what's the good of that? That's not a true relationship. You wouldn't have the same opportunity to hear of someone else's response to the mystery of being. See, so this is also the story of the hero's journey. Really, that the hero goes away and on adventures, has experience, and comes back full of experience with treasures. See, and to review this, just in before we do the time chapters, I think we'll just add a little bit to the understanding of what happens when we project into time and the richness of the sense of separation that arises when we then come home and include the other or the other spaces and the other times in this one awareness. So we will see. I hope to see you in the next section. In part 4, there are 3 chapters, and in these chapters, Douglas Harding turns his attention to the aspect of time. So far in the book, he's been looking at his own structure, what he is in terms of space, the center and the regions, and the projection into the most distant regions, and then the embrace of that here, that what is projected there is also given here. And then he says that this is also a projection into time from this center, which is here and which is now. There's projected all these regions which are not just there, but are then. And so he says, well, I look up at the sun and I say that it's 9 minutes ago, relegate it into the past. Or I look at the star and I say, well, I relegate that one to 10 years ago, and the galaxy to maybe 10 million years ago. And the explanation of this is that even though light is the fastest thing in the world, it takes time to travel. So the light of the star has taken, say, 10 years to get here. And the light of the galaxy might have taken 10 million years to get here. See? And even something as close as your hand is still distant from the center. So it has taken time to get here. And then Douglas says that, does this mean I'm kind of cut off from everything? That here I am, here and now, but everything is there and then and gone, and by the time I see it, it's over, kind of dead? Am I isolated in this central here and now from everything? I said, well, no, just as the star I see isn't over there, but is given here in me from there, so the star isn't then 10 years ago, see, but is given now from then. So the what is happening in the star is happening here and now in me and not over there in the star. If I go up to the star, I lose it. See? And in fact, if I have gone right up to the star and find it's nothing there, and then I come away, then the further away I come from that star, its light has more distance, see, to travel, and takes longer and evolves as it travels. So very close up to that center of the star. As I move away, I suppose I might find electrons and then atoms and then molecules and eventually way out here, the star. And so when I say that I am looking at the star as it was, given now, it has evolved from that center through all those regions and has taken time to evolve to get here. And so in a certain sense, time is created between centers and evolves. And the further apart the centers are, see, the longer the distance, the longer it has to grow. So by the time, even by the time I see my hand, it's grown up from nothing through particles, through molecules, through cells, see, to being a hand now. Now, that is the past aspect. What about the future? The past aspect is how long that star or that hand or whatever it is taken to arrive now from then, from over there and over then. But perception is always two-way. So whenever I'm aware of an object, then I'm in a projective, reflective relationship. So with the star, the person, or the hand, or whatever it is. And so that just as the star is in me, I'm in the star. And it goes together. And the star grows up and appears here in me. And I grew up from nothing and appear there in the star. But the stimulus coming in, what I receive of the star, what I experience of the star here and now, from its past, that's given now as it was yet now, my response is into its future. From now to its future, because it takes time for my response to go back. And the image Douglas has is that it's as if you are touching the star with two hands. And people talk about being in touch with the star, seeing it as a form of touch, if you like. And with my left hand and arm, I'm reaching out. That's the incoming signal. See, so what I get is what the star was, where it's been, as it were, where it's come from, and my outgoing response is towards its future. See? And I hold those two aspects of the star here and now. And Douglas Harding calls this correspondence time because he has this image of writing a letter. And his idea is that, say he's in London and his friend is in Scotland, and it takes 2 days for the postal service to deliver the letter. And so the letter that he's reading and then writing his response to his friend, the letter he's reading is from his friend's past 2 days ago. That's what his friend was doing, but it's given now. And what he's writing, his response, is what his friend will receive in 2 days. So what is given now in my experience, the object has the aspect of where it's come from, what it was doing, where it's past, and where it's going. Every object has that, you see, and that is embraced in this timeless now. See? And if I'm looking at a star, then the gap, the report is from, say, 10 years ago, and my response will be in 10 years. So that kind of gap between your hands is 20 years. That's the present moment of the star. So that the central here and now, which has no duration, see, as you look into the regions, it embraces, it expands in the present moment, depending on how far you look. So seeing is both retrospective, you are aware of the past of the object, and also anticipatory, you're aware of the future, where it's going, what's going to happen. And Douglas Harding has an image of if you're shooting an arrow at a target, you know that the target's going to receive your arrow in a few seconds, or half a second, or whatever it is. Or if you're driving down a road and you look up ahead, you understand that the road is going to receive you in a few moments. Or you're out in a boat on the ocean and you're looking at the harbour, and so you know where you hope to go, where you're going to go. And so when you are with someone and you're receiving them here from there and now from then, see, their past, where they've come from, what they've been doing, all of that, your response will be received there, because your appearance will grow up and their appearance with the regions that you pass through will break down and receive you there in the future. And so the incoming is you're receptive and receiving, being aware of their past, your past, and the outgoing is being aware of they're going to receive you in a moment or in a year or in 10 years, see? And this is this incoming and outgoing, this retrospective and anticipatory, is held together as two aspects of the object and, of course, of yourself from the point of view of the other. Douglas Harding then points out that there are what he calls rhythms of communication or correspondence between that center and this center, between that galaxy and this galaxy, if you like, or that star and this star, or that person and this person. And that the time it takes for the incoming and outgoing is longer when you're looking further. So at the level of the star, it takes much longer than, say, at the level of the human being, where we're much closer. So that the correspondence time is less. But he says you don't actually feel more rushed at the human level than you do at the galactic level, where the correspondence takes so much longer, because the time is scaled so that it is just given in the now, you see. So that present moment of millions of years from the past and into the future of a galaxy that you're holding in your now is given now. And the present moment that might be a few minutes or a few hours or whatever it is at the human level is given now. But what does change with range, with the longer it takes for the correspondence to happen, is that the signal matures with range. As I was saying, that when you're moving away from an object and you give it more time, it evolves from a primitive particle to fairly primitive cell to a hand. See? And a rather nice image or thought about this is at the human level, where the correspondence hasn't had much time, you see, or relatively much time compared to a star. We rush around and we can't tell what we're going to do with much certainty tomorrow, and we're quite complicated. at these higher levels where there's been more time for the signal to mature. The star is steady, it is serene, it is very generous. The light of the sun, very little of it is intercepted by the planets. The rest goes out to the other stars to promote interstellar communication, you see. And whereas human beings are very complex, stars are full of complexity because their inner regions include the human. But at that level, they are just simple and beautiful and shining, see? So that outward simplicity is not shallow. It contains immense complexity, see? So at that level of your being, which is the star, is a level of your being. So not separate from your human region with all its complexity and all of that. It is a higher level of your body and your mind, you see. So Douglas Harding also talks about the elastic now and delayed correspondence. So the elastic now is that you can illustrate it quite well at the human region, is that the correspondence isn't just through light, like with the star there. So the light, obviously, at this range with a person is very fast. But then you hear the person, you talk to the person, so the stimulus and response is through conversation, and it's not always just question answer. Someone might pose a question and then you have to take time to think about it, you see. And your response to your friend in Scotland might be 2 days, you know, but your friend on the other side of the world that you're writing to, you might just correspond every once a month. And then you're not going to talk about trivial things, probably. You'll talk about bigger pictures, you see. And if I'm in the same room as you, then there's the quick fire of the light, there's the slower rhythm of the conversation, see? And also what comes into the picture is memory and anticipation. So I might remember what you were 10 years ago and anticipate what you might be next year. And now my sense of your past and your future is widened. And so my present moment, or your present moment that is given here in my timeless center here, it can really expand and be quite complex. So not just light and not just conversation, but include memory and anticipation. See? So it's a very complex, rich kind of texture of the present moment, your present moment that I'm holding in the now. And as well as the different ways in which the communication can happen, there's also what Douglas Harding calls delayed correspondence. And this is where, going back to the idea of the office, how the office functions, and you're in the middle and you have superiors and inferiors. I mentioned this before. If you've got a problem or a question that you can solve easily, well, there you are. Question comes in, response goes out. But if it's a difficult problem, then in the office what you would do is you would refer it down to your staff and ask them to do research, you see. And you'd also refer it up to your superiors to ask for guidance. And the bigger, the more difficult the problem, further down your staff have to refer it to their staff, and the further up your superiors have to go, you see. And so it's going to take longer for the answer to come back. And that's if you have, you know, a deep problem and you sleep on it, or you might spend much longer waiting for the answer. And you might, prayer is a kind of form of asking for help there. Or if you are writing something, some creative project, then there is that element of having to wait for the deeper realizations to come through. And that is what Douglas Harding calls delayed correspondence. And what you're doing is you're bringing into the picture the higher and lower levels to gain guidance, as it were. And these higher levels are further away, and it takes longer for the response to come back. Guidance from the stars. So another aspect that Douglas Harding talks about is what he calls shifting the now center. So in terms of space, you shift center to the other center, turn around and see yourself from there. See, and that's the projective, reflective couple. Now, in terms of time, you can shift the now center. So, for example, I could remember you, if I knew you 5 years ago, well, let's say 30 years ago, and I put myself in your shoes then. So now I've shifted from you now to you then. Of course, when I shift to you then, I'm putting myself in your shoes and I'm kind of over there now. So I shift, just as when I shift center to you spatially, then when I'm seeing things from your point of view, I'm over there. That's my here. I've shifted my here. So I can shift my now to what you were and then see the world from then, see myself, if you knew me then, as, perhaps as a child or something like that. Or you can go back further and I might shift my now all the way back to when the Romans invaded Britain, you see, and Boadicea was defending the country or her tribe. And I placed myself at her center where she's aware of those events and look out from her now into that time, you see. So you can shift into the future as well and imagine what your friend will be doing and then what you will be doing from there. So you can shift your now. And Douglas Harding says that history has two viewpoints in a way. You look at the event from now and interpret it and understand it, what the invasion of Britain by the Romans is for us now, you see. And then you shift your now and you look at it, what it was for the people then. And then also you fill in the time since and you look at it, what it was for historians in the 18th century or the 19th century. And all those add up to your view of it. So the event is nothing in itself, but as you move away, it gains perspective and gains meaning. So as my observer looks at me, and as they move away and see me as ever greater whole, so a person, and then humanity, the species, and then life, and then the planet, they are over there at their now, and as well as seeing me grow from a person to a species to life to the planet, see, in space, they also appreciate that my longevity is growing. See, so my past and my future expands, given in there now. See, so that as a person, I have a past of so many decades, and who knows how long I'm going to be around. But my longevity is calculated in terms of decades. But you step back to the species, to humanity, and my longevity now is thousands of years, and hopefully thousands of years into the future as well as the past, and life even more. So that as you step away, my longevity increases, but I still fit within the field, within your now. And so seen from there, I am appreciating that I can look back at the human level just into my past and forward into my future, but further back as humanity, see, and further forward. And the further back I look, you see, if I only look a few decades, that's just to my life. But if I'm going to look further back, my life started a few decades ago, so then I'm going to be looking back into my ancestors, you see, and then further back into the past of life and so on. And so as you look back, you're looking hierarchically. See, so you look back a little bit into your personal life, you look further back into your nation's life or your species' life or your planet's life, and the same forwards, you see. And so one is at the central now, timeless now, here, and from this central now, one looks into the past and the future. It's symmetrical. And the further you look back, the further you can look forward. But as my observer comes up to me and reduces the distance in which I have time to grow, you see, to arrive in my observer from the past and from the observer to anticipate what my future will be, approaching me, see, moving to smaller and smaller holes, as it were, so my past and my future reduce. And at very far away, you can calculate what I will be doing in the future and what I was doing in the past quite easily. As a planet, I can calculate, presumably with some help, where I will be in 1,000 years and where my planetary companions will be in 1,000 years, and where they were 1,000 years ago and where I will be, where I was 1,000 years ago. But as you move up, your ability to see into the future and the past is reduced. At the human level, you'd be hard-pressed to know where my neighbors will be tomorrow or yesterday. See, never mind next week. And the closer you come, because the distance means that there is less time to travel, less time to evolve, so there's less past and less future. And right down, if you were to observe my electrons, you see, you're so close, there's still some distance, so there's still some time, there's still some past and future, but it's practically non-existent. It's a billionth of an inch, you know? And so it is absolutely impossible to predict where my electrons are going to be a moment hence, you see. Now, as my observer approaches, see, and helps me recognize that I'm looking, that I have a past and a future. And Douglas Harding talks about, he just says he's writing, he's working on his book, see, and he is thinking about what he's going to write, and he can see what he's written, so there's the past and the future. See. But where the words come from, see, is from the central now, which is mysterious, which isn't a thing, see, which isn't in time. And at the center of what you're going to do in your life, your purpose, where you're going, you're looking ahead, and what you're aware of, what you've done, you see, looking back, at the center of this present moment, you see, in that present moment, when he's thinking about what he's going to write and aware of what he has written, see, that present moment is that moment of looking ahead and looking back, as it were, given now. But where he's operating from, where he's looking out of, where his words, his creativity comes from, where any of our words come from, is from this timeless center, see? And when they come out, there they are, past, you see. And when we're thinking ahead, you see, there it is, future. Now, Douglas Harding also talks about the experience of what he calls a flow of time. So here you are at this central now, which is timeless, and you look ahead into the future and you look behind into the past, and that's given now. And it's hierarchically organized. See, the further you look, the higher, or the more whole that you see. What I mean is that, say, I've decided to lead a workshop, day workshop. And so that's something I'm thinking about now in the future. And initial decisions about it are very general. Do a workshop, Headless Way workshop. It's going to be a day long, and it's going to be in that venue, you see, and perhaps we'll have so many people, room for so many people. But I don't have to make any more decisions really about it at that time. But as it comes closer, that event, which is a whole at that range, you see, starts to gain more detail and demand different response or decisions. I've got to, at a closer range, think, yeah, now I wonder what, there's a whole day, I wonder what I'm going to do in the morning and the afternoon. Okay, I've got a general idea of what I'll do in the morning and then after lunch, you see. Now it approaches and gets closer, and then it arrives, see. And it's no longer what I'm going to do, it's what I'm dealing with now. And what I'm dealing with now is not what I'm going to do in the afternoon and the morning, but what I'm doing now, what I'm going to do the next moment. I'm thinking ahead, what do I do now, you see. And of course, that's the present situation has broken down from the whole thing, which had, looked forward to as a whole thing, and now it's just one little detail after another coming out of the central timeless wisdom, really, you see. And then, of course, as the workshop passes, you see, then the morning's gone, and we're in the future, in the afternoon, and then the whole thing's gone, and now it's become a day again. It's no longer just the minute or the second; it's the day. And then, as it recedes, you see, it recedes into the past, and I look at it from more and more distance, and I have thoughts about it as a whole, and it's in a context, you see. And it regains some of its wholeness that it had at the beginning. So as it comes in, it breaks down to nothing, in a way, arrives in nothing, and then builds up again. And one is always at the center, see. And things are always sort of breaking down and arriving, see, and then building up and going as they go. And you never go anywhere. You're this timeless center in which this incredible process happens. See? And the last thing that Douglas Harding talks about in that chapter, so much in it, is the difference between projecting into time and projecting into space. And just fairly briefly, I hope, projection into space, to get distance, you need to triangulate. You need to have two views. So my two eyes have a base, distance, and then I can get the angle. My brain is working it out, and then work out the distance, you see, with a triangle, there. See, so that my eyes can judge distance at this range. But if I want to look at a planet and work out the distance, the depth, the projection, see? Well, what I do is I have an observatory on one side of the Earth and another on the other. So there's a few thousand miles or so between them. See? Looking at the planet, well now, if I know the distance between them and I know the angle, I can calculate the distance of the planet. See? And so these observatories on either side act as planetary eyes. As a planet, I've got these two observatories, two eyes, and I'm looking at the other planet, and I can calculate the distance of my friend there, you see, Mars or Jupiter. See? Now, that isn't far enough to look at a star. So what you do is you have an observatory looking at the star in January, which is on one side of the sun, and then 6 months later it's gone round to the other side, and you have a look from there, you know the angle, you know now, if you know the distance between these two observatories, 6 months apart, so you've got to kind of adjust for that. So then you can determine the distance, you see, and those are this star looking at that star with solar eyes, you see. So in terms of calculating the spatial depth, you need to get another view, you see, eyes or observatory or on either side of the sun, that kind of thing. For the time thing, the object is given now. You see, the object given in space has got width and height, and the triangulation, the projection, supplies depth. What about the time depth? Well, the object is given now, and when it's projected, it is divided there into past and future. And just as when you project in space, you see, the object is there, and it's one object there, out there. When you project in time, although you are understanding it's got these two aspects of past and future, it's one object, and it's given here and now. So those two aspects, those aspects of depth in space and the division in time, are kind of provisional, see? Because the here and the now unites everything and holds it as one. So now you have, instead of just the flat object now, you've got the deep object in space and in time, but it's received back here as a living being, full of depth in time and in space. You see. So that is a lot of information from that chapter. I'll say something about the other two chapters. Basically, in these three chapters, the first chapter is on the relationship between two centers. See, correspondence time. It's the time that we make together, that we create together between us, you see. And it's time past and time future, both ways, see, held in the now. And the second chapter is about structure time and focuses on the other center and the time that it takes to grow into whatever it is, of course, in the observer. And the third chapter is more about this side of the equation of the projective reflective couple, the subject, and what is given here. So anyway, I'll see what I make of those. There's tremendous work went into all of this. These chapters, he said, were the most challenging, and I can understand why. I mean, it's because it's so full of paradox. I spent half the time trying to understand it and realizing I'm trying to pin it down. Whereas just as you can't pin yourself down, you can't pin down time. And it's a kind of, you have to be open to tolerating things are both here and there and now and then and all of that. Just a short addendum on that first chapter. One of the messages for me is that when you attempt to live in the present moment, it's not a matter of denying time. That in the first phase of reflection, there's no time, there's no depth. And through that process of projection and turning around and viewing yourself from there, and the discovery of the regional depth of the universe and the regional time of it, all given here, one becomes aware that all of those spatiotemporal regions are given in this timeless space, and they go together. And so that in a way, the result of this in terms of the spiritual life is not to retreat from time or deny time or think of time as a delusion that needs to be transcended. It's just a thought, that kind of idea. In terms of this model, it includes the many-leveled, deep, deep universe in consciousness, in awareness, including all the time past, all time future, gathered together in this eternal now, really. So the eternal now isn't rejecting time, dismissing time, celebrating time, in fact. That was quite a lot of information about that first chapter on time. So I think that now I will not go into a lot more detail. I've already covered a lot of ground. And just look ahead a little bit in general terms to hopefully inspire you to read the book. I mean, there's a tremendous amount in the rest of the book. That first chapter on time is the time that's created between two centers, between two galaxies, two people, two cells. See? The second chapter looks at the objective side of that relationship. So I'm looking at you and I've got your body. So it's looking at how the body, the structure evolves given range. See? And the third chapter is about your side of things, the view out, your mind, and the field. And I mean, there are amazing ideas that are so different from common sense that you get throughout the hierarchy. And in that third chapter called The Species Present, it goes back to the idea of the constant field containing whatever's going on, of course. And if you hold a penny next to the moon, then it's about the same size, given the width of the field, within the field, you see. But you know that it's bigger, so with projection out to that range, you say, well, as I project, it stays the same size within the field of view, but the content of it is much more condensed. The space of it, see, the volume of it is condensed. And if you look even further to a galaxy, it's tiny, but it might be billions of miles across and deep, you see. So its volume is really condensed out at that range, see, and the field stays constant. So at that range, you could say either the field has expanded to incredible proportions there, you see, but contains it, or the object has shrunk within the constant field, see. And what I find really interesting is that if I am looking at a galaxy, then I'm a galaxy. I'm in projective, reflective relationship with that galaxy. And that galaxy, which is absolutely huge, fits easily within the field. See? Well, from that point of view, I'm a galaxy. I'm huge, billions of miles across. See? And yet I fit within the field easily. I fit within this here, you see. And at the level distance of the human being, my friend fits within the field, see, like the galaxy does. So my friend is contained within the field, but is closer. So my friend's space is less condensed. See, if I hold a little marble up here, then it's as big as the moon. But I say that the moon is very condensed, and this little object here is less condensed. It's relative, you see. And just as my friend fills the field at this range, therefore I fill the field at this range, and I don't feel big or small. I just feel myself, you know, because I'm not bigger than the field or small, you know, tiny. I'm just right. And when I'm a galaxy, I don't feel any bigger or smaller than I do as a human being, because I don't kind of spill over the edge of the field. You know, I fit within the field. So I'm, at each range, I am condensed or not, just right to feel normal size, if you like. So then when uh, you then look at time, so the constant field spatially, see, and the constant moment, the temporal field is constant. It's now, just now. It doesn't have a duration. It doesn't have a beginning and an edge. See, it's just constant now. And when you project the galaxy out to that region, it's condensed. See, at that range, its time is condensed. So the now that that galaxy is, it might be might exist for billions of years and going to exist for billions of years. See, that longevity is held now, just as at the human level, my longevity is kind of, I embrace all my past, to my birth and to my future, to my death. That is me, you see. And as a galaxy, I embrace all of me, billions of years now. That's me, see. So time is also adjusted. And as I look up at the galaxy, see, I my size and my duration condenses into the here and now. See, and then I look at a friend, and at this range, I kind of uncondense to fill the field or something like that. So this is what we normally do. You see, is you measure the distance at arm's length, and then you measure the time. The species present is the lapse of time that you can hear or see in the present moment. So if you're listening to bells, you chiming one after the other, see, then you can probably hear about 4 bells together, yet they're separate. See, and you know which is before and which is after. And then you probably extend it a bit by remembering a bit and hearing, anticipating a bit. So the present moment right at center has no duration, but as you move out into the regions, it has a duration. See, and you hold it within the now. That William James, the philosopher, called that the saddleback of the present moment, that it is shaped like that. It's not just a point. The point is here. As you move out, that saddleback or that duration widens, you see. And at the human level, in terms of just hearing the present moment or experiencing the present moment in that way, it's just a few seconds. So then you look up at the galaxy, you think, well, I'm only seeing that for a few seconds. Well, the value of if you measure across the view with a ruler, and you've got digits, you see, and you say, well, at this range, my fingers, here it's 2 inches long, you see. So that is a sort of standard. But that is a certain amount of width of the field, which at this range I'm calling 2 inches. See? But at that range, between 2 stars, is millions and millions of miles. See? Or if I look down a telescope at that width of the field, down a microscope, but that width of the field is a fraction of an inch. So it varies, and to apply our standards to all the other regions, it isn't appropriate. So anyway, that's in the species present. There's so much more about velocity that just as the duration is condensed as you go out, and the distance is condensed, the speed of things is adjusted. So you look out, and the fly walking across the window is going the same speed as the bird flying across the garden and the jet plane across the sky. Well, you say that's going faster and this is going slower, but they're moving at the same speed. So as it's given, the speed is adjusted so that nothing goes really fast. Just as nothing gets really big or really long in time. Incredible, incredible. Of course, at the centre, no movement at all. Not fast or slow, not old or young, not big or small. After that, there's a whole section called autobiography, which extends your view back and forwards, your whole autobiography, back through humanity and life and the planet and the star. And because everything is paired, the individual person with humanity, and then the cell with life, and the molecule with the planet, as you look back both to the superior series, going back through your ancestors and back through life and all of that, and through your inferior past, back through childhood, which recapitulates the development of the race, back into the womb, which recapitulates the history of life, and then forwards too, looking forwards into the future. If you've got children, what they'll be doing in the future, then what your nation will be doing, and way into the future through humanity and life. Or the lower series, or when you get old, you have your second childhood, and then you die, and you return just to cells, and then eventually to molecules, and so on. So it's just a very different way of looking at things. That's from the central now, back and forward, see? And the last section is on angelology, and it's really looking at the traditionally the upper levels of life and the planet and the star and the galaxy. See, these are living wholes. These are living wholes, and we've lost touch with that kind of awareness of the life above the human, really. And Douglas, he reveals himself as just a fantastic historian. I mean, he's done a lot of research, and that bit is mainly on the development of European culture and looking back to Dante and the medieval cosmos, and then the debunking of that, so as it were, with the rise of science, and how there has been the history he traces really is a history of the movement. I mean, over centuries, of the contraction from the living whole, see, to debunking these holes, and all the way down to through chemistry and physics to the center, you see. So there's a contraction there going on over centuries, and we're ready for an expansion back. There's just another way of looking at the downward movement from the top to the bottom of the hierarchy and back, which is like in-breathing and out-breathing. It's the metabolism, the whole body. But I'm not aware anyone has looked at history in that way and interpreted it in that way. It's so original and just makes sense. But this understanding of the many-leveled whole, and that your history is not just your human history, but it's the history of the whole. See, it just fantastically original and exciting, actually. So I'm going to leave it there. I hope you read the book. The short book, the condensed version, which was the first one that was published in my study of the hierarchy, has turned out to be really useful because it's kind of, it's a summary in a way. You need the big hierarchy if you're really going to study it in depth. But the condensed version is a really useful summary to have by your side. And then if you go really far into it, then when the cards become available online in the archive, you can look at those, and that will give you even more insight into this book and how Douglas Harding wrote it and worked out his ideas and discovered what he thought, really. So I'll just say a little bit more on the epilogue, but I'm going to leave the details of the book at that point, and really hope that I've inspired some of you out there to look at this book, and I hope it gets into the syllabuses of universities and so on. So I'm going to draw to a close here. I've gone on for a long time, and I hope to have inspired you with this book, given you some view into it. Every time I study it, I discover new things, and in a year I'll think, Richard, you could have done a lot better with your presentation, but that is how things change with time, you see. And Douglas said he wrote this book, but it'll only be many, many years later will he realize what he wrote, really, because you only see the whole emerges with distance and time, you see. And that we're the same with any event. But at the very end of the hierarchy, in the epilogue, Douglas writes that all of this system, this way of understanding things, which is just phenomenal, what he achieved, what he found, how he expressed it, how he wrote it, how he organized it. This does not answer the question, what am I? It's a kind of, it's a good shot, it's a good try, but nothing pins down the one that you are, you see. And he says, if I have quenched the smallest flame of wonder in anyone about being, then it would be better I hadn't written this book. And he returns really to his original inspiration of this whole inquiry. In the epilogue, he says, because what is fundamental is the fact that you are. And you cannot explain that you are. You can attempt to explain what you are, see? And this was his attempt, given his moment in time with science and everything, this was his attempt to draw a diagram, a new diagram of man in the universe, a new theory of everything, you see. But that is an attempt to describe what you are, explain what you are, given the ideas of modern science and relativity. But that you are, you can't explain that you are. I can't explain that I am. And this is the mystery, and this is the great treasure and the thing to be aware of. What is behind and within and through this inquiry is the recognition on Douglas Harding's part, in terms of what is at the heart of the book, that he was aware that he was, and he couldn't explain that. And he didn't want to live and die without spending some time reflecting on the fact that I am. And I can't explain what I am. And I can go down all these rabbit holes and into all these areas. And, it's fantastic. And it's very important in our modern world to have a modern view of where we are and what we are. And it makes sense of so many problems that with perception, for example, that we have, see, that can't be understood or solved using the old model. I am a thing looking at another thing. That is useful abstraction, but it doesn't, it's full of contradictions. But when you come back to what you are and take seriously what you are, and that you're nothing here and no time, and you're looking out into these regions, and that you're in commerce with observers, the law of equality and the law of elsewhereness, you can't pin anything down, see, and that you directly experience are immanent here in me, and I'm immanent there in you, see, and you grow to be what you are from there in me, and I let you know what you are. All of this is so important because it helps us understand, and it'll produce so many insights that we can't even see at the moment, you see. But the basic mystery remains that I am, that you are, And this is the miracle of being. And this is really the one celebrating it's the mysterious fact that one is. Yes. A new theory of everything based on the timeless mystery that one is.